Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let us start our class today. So before that, let us briefly look into what we have studied in the last class. So in the last class, we have started with the ethanol fermentations, and we discussed that we will be classifying the alcohols into the type of applications that you are going to use it. So generally, these days, if you see the alcohols, generally the alcohols are used for the energy applications and the beverage applications, right? So and like alcohols are like different types, starting from the ethanol, methanol, okay, butanol, and so on. So there are different derivatives of the ethanol, or derivatives of the alcohol, I mean, and that can be produced actually through different fermentation routes. So the fermentation routes which is used for the production of, for example, the ethanol, which is a main component of a biofuel. Okay, so that is the process or the technology is different than, for example, when we use it for the production of the beverages, like we have the alcohols like the wine and so on. So the technology and the processes are different for both the case. So we'll start with the fermentation of the alcohols. We start with understanding. We studied what is the solvent fermentations, and we started with the ethanol fermentation, and we started with what are the different substrates can be used for the fermentation of the ethanol. In today's class, we are going to see the fermentation conditions and the parameters. So to understand the fermentation conditions and the parameters, what we will going to understand, we are going to see the biosynthesis pathway. Okay, so this is very much important that whenever you are designing your overall fermentation process, you should know what is the biosynthesis pathway, and you have to know that what are the substrates that you are going to use for your fermentation, because that substrate is actually very much important, because it is going to add the overall cost of the process. And so we have already discussed that one of the main objective of using the, for example, the production of the ethanol uh, is to use, for example, the agricultural wastes, right? And the agricultural waste consists of three different main components. So can anyone of you tell what is the component or composition of any agricultural biomass? Like if you take a bamboo stems or rice husks or anything agricultural waste. So what is the main composition? Can anyone tell?
So cellulose, lignin, and hemicellulose.
Yeah. Okay. So we have basically these three components are there, and we need to break down these components into some sort of a monomeric units, which can be taken up by the microorganisms within their biochemical pathways, and so that they can be converted into some value-added products. Okay, and in this case, we will talk about the ethanol as one of the value-added products that is we are targeting to produce. So. So for that, we need to carry out several modifications or pre-treatment strategies. Okay, and so those were the things that we were discussing in the last class. And before that, we also seen that there are several organisms, microorganisms. Either you can use the yeast or you can use the bacteria. Both of them have their own merits as well as demerits. Okay, so we will see that if, like for example, the productivity of the Saccharomyces cerevisiae, this is a very widely means most widely used yeast for the production of the ethanol, because of their high yield. But the problem is like they have a ethanol tolerance of 10% volume by volume. So because so if they have a this if this is the means 10% only, so we can understand that we cannot allow a maximum concentration of above 10% within the fermentation media. Otherwise, what will happen? There will be a decrease in the growth rate or the productivity of this particular microorganism. So how do we overcome, for example, this problem is by using the some sort of like a perfusion reactors where we are extracting out the product continuously. So we'll look into those things, like how by making the proper design of the reactor systems, how we can actually overcome the demerits. Okay, and we make sure that we get the higher yield and the higher concentration of the alcohols for the both the cases. So And another species is a thermophilic species. So these are means they are able to grow at a very high temperature. So generally, as we have discussed, that we would in the industrial fermentation processes, which are which are actually carried out in very larger volumes, suppose the 1,000 liters or more than that. Generally, a lot of heat is generated because the biomass concentration is actually very much higher. Okay, in those type of fermentation processes. So one of the very important thing is that during the fermentation process is to maintain a very high biomass concentrations. Okay, so if the biomass concentration is high, then what will happen? The substrate that is there will be consumed up, and higher concentration substrate will consume, and higher product will be produced. And during this step, everything is an exothermic process, and a lot of heat is generated. Okay, so we need to add adequate cooling water and other cooling systems. Heat transfer, heat exchangers are there to maintain adequate temperature for during the fermentation process, and that adds to the overall cost of the process. So we would like to have a microbial systems which is able to grow at higher temperature. So that means we don't need to add any cooling systems to that fermentation process, so that the overall cost is lower. Because if you see our overall objectives, ours like the substrate is also we are trying to get it from the agricultural waste. Even the means we are trying to design microorganisms which can grow at lower energy conditions and lower maintenance. Okay, so that the overall product that we get is actually the cheaper in there. Because if you see the ethanol, end of the day, ethanol is a high volume, low value product. Okay, so we need at a very much high volume, but the value should be as low as possible. Okay, because we are not going to use the ethanol means completely. We are going to use at a fraction of it into, for example, in the petroleum or in the fossil fuels as a fuel, because so that to reduce the cost as well as to make it the overall process as a sustainable. So generally, whatever, so how this ethanol uses is a sustainable. Okay, so if you see the carbon footprint, so whatever the agricultural waste is there, generally what we do, we burn it off, and carbon dioxide and the carbon monoxides are produced, and this carbon is actually released into the atmosphere. But what we are trying to do is we trying to use that carbon that is present in the biomass into in form sort of a the fuel. Okay, and that actually we are actually means that we are extracting out the energy that is present in this carbon that is present in the biomass in form sort of a fuel. And then whatever that whenever the ethanol is burnt off from the automobiles, we have the CO2 or the carbon monoxide emissions that are there, then that is actually released to the atmosphere. So but during this process, what is happening, we are actually creating a means eco-friendly or sustainable environment where we are actually able to deviate means the carbon cycle of means carbon cycle through the utilization of the fuel. So we are able to extract the energy that was actually burnt off initially. So that is how actually the utilization of the ethanol is actually going to help. But if you see at the overall in the larger picture, we still are going to produce the carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide down the line. So these gases are actually going to cause, for example, your greenhouse gas effect. But overall, the carbon footprint of this process is significantly lower compared to means, if you are just directly burning it off, the carbon footprint is higher. If you are making it the ethanol, the carbon footprint is significantly lower. So coming to the substrate, so we have talked about that there can be different agricultural waste substrate, and they contain different type of sugars and the derivatives. So so what are the different sugars that are present in the agricultural waste? So we have already talked about that it contains, suppose, the cellulose, lignin, and the hemicellulose. Okay, so generally cellulose, when we have the cellulose, we actually we know the cellulose is nothing but it's a polymer of beta 1,4 glucose. Okay, so it is made of the long chain of these glucose units. Okay, and what we need to do is we need to break this long chain of these glucose units. Okay, so that we obtain this glucose monomer, and we know the glucose can be taken up by the microorganisms. So any microorganisms we can actually take the small means the sugars, simple sugars, they are able to use or metabolize this glucose into the other products. So always most of the microorganisms, they are going to use the suppose the monosaccharides as their source of the food. Okay, So if you see the cellulose, so cellulose can be broken down into, for example, the glucose dimer, which is the cell called the cellobiose, and then glucose dimer can be broken down into a single unit of glucose. So this conversion of this cellulose to the glucose can actually be done by two ways. So one is the enzymatic route, another is the chemical treatment. Okay. So coming to the enzymatic route, so there are several enzymes actually which can be used for the conversion of this cellulose into this type of glucose. So if you see some of the enzymes, so one of the enzyme that converts the cellulose to the glucose is called the cellulase. Okay. So this is one of the ways by which we can use some of the enzymes, and this cellulase enzyme, for example, are present in different microorganisms, the organisms which can actually metabolize the cellulose. So cellulose is actually, for example, present in the trees, in the grass, or for example, different lignocellulosic materials are there. So some of the animals, for example, like the cow, or so I have one basic questions. So can anyone tell that if, for example, the humans can degrade the cellulose or not? Anyone? So it is a very basic question, I think.
No.
So,
Yeah. So generally, humans cannot, we cannot directly consume any such type of products, because we are not able to, we don't have the enzyme actually cellulose. So in our digestive system, this particular enzyme is not produced. So we are not able to, for example, convert any cellulose or lignocellulosic materials so into the monomeric sugars, because in our body also, human system also, we need to have some sort of this type of monomeric these monosaccharides that will be absorbed by our body. Okay, and then it is actually used for the in our metabolic activity or metabolism. So our digestive system actually do not have this particular enzyme, but this enzyme, for example, is present in the some of the animals like the cows, buffaloes, who are consuming a large amount of these grasses and all those things. Generally, they use this so they have this particular enzyme which actually uh, converts the cellulose to these glucose units, and from this glucose they are actually carrying out their metabolic activity. So there are also some of the microorganisms which can grow on this type of lignocellulosic biomass. Okay. And then there are some of the other organisms like the termites, we know, which grows on the wood. So what we try to do, we extract these means we try to extract the enzymes from such type of microorganisms, termites. Okay. And we use that enzyme, extracted enzyme, for our conversion of our these lignocellulosic biomasses to the glucose derivatives. Okay. So cellulase is one of the enzymes. Similarly, for the other sugars, like we have, for example, the sucrose. Sucrose, I think we have, yeah. So sucrose, we have discussed that if you see the sugarcane waste, okay, and the sugar beets, for example, so they contain the high concentration of the sucrose sugar. So sucrose is nothing but the disaccharide of. So it has one monosaccharide is the glucose, and the other monosaccharide is the 5' fructose. Okay, so if you want to convert into the glucose and the fructose separately, then you have to use the enzyme which is called the invertase. Okay. So similarly goes for the starch. So starch is again one of the this polymer of glucose. But if you see the difference between the cellulose and the starch is the alpha and the beta orientation of the glycosidic bonds that is present in between the glucose molecules. Okay, so in this case we have the alpha alpha. So it's between alpha 1,4 and alpha 1,6, and in this case we have the beta 1,4 glucose linkages. So just by having these different linkages, different linkage in between the glycosidic bonds, so actually the enzymes that can be used is the different. So here we have the alpha amylase, which breaks down the starch into the glucose. So for example, the maltose also, the dimer of the this glucose 1,4 derivatives actually will be actually converted to these glucose sugars by the using of these alpha amylase. So maltose, we have, I guess, we have seen in our last class, the maltose is also some of the waste that is generated from some of the food industries also. And then we have the another lactose. So lactose also from one of the waste products from the milk industries. So lactose uses the enzyme which is called the beta galactosidase. Okay, and it is a mixture of the glucose, right, and the galactose. Okay, so we extract out the glucose and we use it as directly, and the galactose is actually converted into galactose 1 phosphate, and then this galactose 1 phosphate enters into the biochemical pathway. So fructose is converted like fructose 1 phosphate, and the galactose is converted into galactose 1 phosphate, and they both of these moieties actually enter into the biochemical pathways for the ethanol production. So we will show at which particular point actually means they can enter the biochemical pathways. So generally, whatever the this if some of the starting material or substrate is having the mixture of these sugars, like the fructose, glucose, or this in this case we have the glucose and galactose. So glucose we know is common of all the units, which we will just see now that how this glucose is going to be consumed. But whatever the other periphery sugars, like the fructose and the galactose, they are also they also enter the biochemical pathway, but at some other adjacent steps that are there, that which actually it undergoes the conversion from fructose to fructose 1 phosphate and galactose to galactose 1 phosphate, and then it enters the biochemical pathway. So these two part we are going to look into the subsequent slides. Then coming to the this substrate, just some of the takeaway points. So generally, if you see the as we discussed in the last slide, so the primary substrates that are used. So if you see the basic backbone of what are the sugars that are there, or what are the monosaccharides, disaccharides that are present. So these are the glucose, sucrose, lactose, and cellulose are the very basic substrate. Okay, and they are broken down into the metabolite products, which can actually be taken up into the metabolic pathway. Okay, and this process of means breaking down or this your that initial substrate into some of the products which can be used as a in the metabolism is actually is actually named or called as a catabolic primary metabolism, which is nothing but the breakdown. So generally we are taking the longer polymeric components or the polymeric sugars or the polysaccharides as such, and we are breaking down into the monosaccharides. So this step is actually called the catabolic primary metabolisms. As the name suggests, it's called the breakdown. So then once you have broken it down, so for example, like you have broken it into suppose glucose and the fructose. So to make sure that this glucose and the fructose sugar, for example, it enters into the biochemical pathway, we have to convert this glucose to, for example, into the phosphate moieties. So the glucose will be converted, for example, first by into the glucose 1 phosphate. Okay, to make sure that whatever the glucose is converted, it enters into the biochemical pathway, because it might be that you have converted your means you have provided sufficient glucose to your as a substrate, but that glucose may not cross, for example, the across the cellular membranes and go into the cytoplasm of the cells, where actually the biochemical pathways or biochemical reactions are going to take place. So we have to make sure that the glucose is converted into glucose 1 phosphate, and then it will suppose converted it will go into the glycolysis cycle. So we'll just see what is the glycolysis cycle. So we have to make sure that means the enzyme is hydrolyzed into the means the monosaccharide, as well as the monosaccharide components are actually converted into the appropriate functionalities. So these are the some of the steps, and then we will see. So there are some enzymes for that. So we have in this case for the sucrose phosphorylase, we have the cellobiose phosphorylase, and so on. So like this, we will just see that, and also some sort of kinases are there. So there are some enzymes that are responsible for this conversion. So we have to make sure that those things are actually present during the fermentation process. So then comes the means we have talked about the starch, maltose, and the lactose. like they are converted into the glucose and the galactose, and then for example they have to taken up by the glycolysis cycle or the glycolytic pathway. So when we are just carrying, so we have just talked about the what are the enzymes we are taking, what are the initial primary substrates that are available to us, but generally how we are actually going to actually going to carry out this hydrolysis process. Means hydrolysis means that we are going to break down the longer sugars into the monomeric sugar units. So generally that's why when we take the lignocellulosic component, okay, so we have, when we talk of the lignocellulosic component, we have the three components like the lignin, the cellulose, right, and we have the hemicellulose, for example. Okay, and then we are hydrolyzing it with the enzymes. So what is going to happen, so we don't have yet talked about the lignin component until now. We have talked about the cellulose, okay, and we have also not talked about the hemicellulose. So cellulose we know will go into the glucose. Okay, and one other thing is the hemicellulose. Actually, when it is degraded, it will go into another sugar, which is called as a xylose. So we look into these two things in our later part, like how the xylose and how this lignin can actually be utilized for the production of the ethanol. So generally, the lignocellulosic biomass, the major fractions, as we have talked about, that 50-60% is composed of the cellulose. So we will see first of all how the glucose is utilized for the production of the ethanol, and then we will see the how the xylose is used, and third we will see the how the lignin is used. So let us now focus on the utilization of the glucose component that we obtain from the cellulose for the extraction of the ethanol. Okay, so there are some steps that we so when suppose you have any rice straw or any rice husk waste with you, or any other the sugarcane waste and so on. So given a x agricultural waste to you, so what are you going to do? So what are the steps you are going to do for the extraction of or for the extraction of the sugar hydrosylates or these sugar derivatives from them? So for first step that you are going to do is the grinding. Okay, and then the next step is the saccharification. The third step is the second step is the liquefaction, and third step is the saccharifications. So what is the grinding? Basically, the grinding is that we generally take these rice husks or the grains that are there. They are actually grounded into some of the powdered form in a dry state. So why this grounding is grinding or grounding of this is necessary? So means what we do is we initially take the fibers. Generally, suppose we talk about the sugarcane fibers. So we break the sugarcane fibers into very small units. Okay, so that we get some sort of a powdered like residues. And why it is important to make it a powdered like, because when it is a powdered form, generally the surface area of the substrate actually increases. So whatever the chemical additives or derivatives actually you are going to add, then the efficiency of means the liquefaction and the saccharification is actually going to improve. So why? Because our main objective is to extract the sugars that is present within this, suppose the sugarcane waste, what is the cellulose is there, we would like to extract that and we would like to convert that into the glucose derivatives. So that's why actually it is very important that we grind it into the smaller particles, so that we are having, and we ended up having the high surface area materials, and then actually it is mixed with the hot water and the alpha amylase. So alpha amylase, as I discussed, that it is an enzyme, okay, which acts on the extraction of, for example, the conversion of the starch to the glucose units. Okay, so we use the hot water at a particular temperature at which suppose the hot water is somewhere around 50 to, for example, 70 degrees Celsius generally. Okay, so hot water actually helps in, for example, the swelling of the fibers. So fibers, like if you see that if you see, for example, your A4 sheets or your notebook, so if you drop a drop of water on your notebook, what is happening? The cellulose fiber swells up, right? And you can see there is a wavy pattern. That is because the fibers initially was you have a straight paper, but the fibers have swelled up. There is a volume expansion that's occurred. Okay, so generally we use the hot water for treatment of the fibers, so that whenever we have this type of high surface area, means this powdered form, these fibers actually swells up. And when the fiber swelling occurs, what is happening? The chemicals can easily penetrate, or the enzymes can easily penetrate to the inside of the pores of the fibers. Okay, and because of that, the breakdown of those of these cellulosic units into the monomeric glucose will be higher. So the efficiency or the conversion of this starch into the glucose derivatives will be higher if we are using the hot waters. Okay, and because actually of the solubility of the fibers. So once so this is a step which is actually called the means the first step of making into powdered form is called the grinding, and after that mixing with the hot water and the treating with the enzyme it's actually what the liquefaction is. The second step liquefaction is there. And then after that this once we have done this type of the liquefaction, so in this process after the starch liquefaction is done, then we actually carry out the saccharifications. So the saccharifications we add another enzyme, for example the glucoamylase, okay, which actually converts means glucoamylase and alpha amylase, basically what is the difference. So generally they are similar type of, they have a similar activity, means that's why, because the name is amylase, where the main objective is to break down the longer starch molecules into the monomeric sugars. But most of the time what happens, as we talked about, the initial starch molecule are very long chains. Okay, so alpha amylase is not effective enough to break down all the means to break down into the single monosaccharide. So sometimes trisaccharides or disaccharides are also being are produced. Okay, so and we have a mixture of the glucose molecule, and then we have mixture of 4 5 glucose molecule combined, or 3 glucose molecules combined in the reaction mixture. So which is not actually the ideal one. Okay, we would like to have, because our bacteria or yeast can only take the a single monomeric glucose. It cannot take anything like even it's a disaccharide. I think it will not be able to utilize it for the production of the ethanol. So we use another enzyme, and in this case we use the glucoamylase, which is efficient enough to convert these disaccharide triglycerides, the oligomeric units that is present. So generally, when so this type of so when you have this type of disaccharide, trisaccharide, or like the 6 7 molecules of the glucose together, so this type of molecules are actually called the oligosaccharides. Okay, so when, for example, if and they have something from 3 to 10. So we know of the monosaccharide, we know the disaccharide, that means it contains 2 sugar molecules. And if it contains more than 2 to 10, then it is called the oligosaccharides, and above 10, it is called the polysaccharides. Okay, so in this case, we add another enzyme called the glucoamylase, which actually converts these oligosaccharides all into the monosaccharides. Okay, and this step is actually known as the saccharification step. So once you have the saccharification step, you have all your glucose means all your cellulose or any the starch, whatever it is, you have all those things converted into the glucose units. So now these glucose units will be actually used off by the yeast for the production of the ethanol. Okay, so now when the production of this utilization of these glucose units taking place, as we have already discussed in the last class, that the production of the ethanol is actually carried out in the absence of oxygen. Okay, so in the absence of oxygen, this is carried out. So generally, how means when you are adding the inocula, so we have already talked or heard of the term what is the inoculum, right? So when we start a fermentation process, we have now the concentration of the glucose that is there after the saccharification step. Okay, now in that we are going to add some amount of the initial the yeast culture. Okay, so which is when you add a small amount of the actively growing the microorganism, which is actually called the inoculum. So when you add this inoculum, what will happen? Initially, this particular yeast will actually try to consume up whatever the oxygen is present in the in this initial glucose solution. Okay, and when it is going to consume the oxygen, it is suppose going to means it is generally this particular yeast, the Saccharomyces cerevisiae, in the presence of the oxygen, actually it increases the biomass concentration. Okay, so whenever in the presence of, so generally if you see, the fermentation can either be carried out in the presence of oxygen, or it can be carried out in the absence of oxygen. So generally if it is being in the presence of oxygen, what happens, this particular yeast actually increases its biomass concentration. That means the overall cell concentration or cell numbers are increasing, and that is also something which is desirable. We need to have the higher biomass concentrations. Okay, and whatever the dissolved oxygen is there, it is actually it is being consumed. Then for example, after that we maintain anaerobic conditions, that is we remove, or we reduce, means we make sure that the oxygen is actually not present. And then what happens, once the absent oxygen is absent, whatever the glucose is there, that is actually converted into the ethanol during the fermentation. So so this is a basic step how we actually carry out. So we will look into that, what happens in the presence of oxygen, which pathway is happening, and once we having the higher, means we are having the absence of oxygen, and there is a switch in the biochemical pathway, and how that means how the production of that ethanol is gets initiated in the presence of, in the absence of the oxygen. Okay, so generally if you see, so initially what we try to do, so generally it's just two step. Initially we try to make it a very high biomass concentration, and then once the cell concentration is high enough, we reduce the oxygen concentration, and what we obtain is the to make sure that we get the higher productivity or the production of the ethanol started during the fermentation. So all the microorganisms that you are produced in the step one will be now acting towards the conversion of the glucose that is present in the fermenter into the ethanol. Okay, so now once you have the ethanol being produced, then we actually carry out a distillation. So distillation is, everyone knows, because the ethanol is a volatile component. We will carry out a distillations where we will boil at a higher temperature and reach to the formation of ethanol vapors, which is actually then condensed uh, to to obtain the pure ethanol. So we look into the distillations, how many number of steps or the stages that is required during the ethanol during the distillation, and how to means, we will not go into the design or go into the details of the unit process for the distillation, but basic overview on how we can what is the distillation, and how we can actually use the distillation to find out, and what are the number of stages of the distillation column that is required to get, suppose, your desired quality of your, or purity of the ethanol as such. So now for when you have, for example, removed from the ethanol from your fermentation media, what you are left behind is the high concentrated yeast cells that is there. Okay, so generally this biomass actually is dehydrated and evaporated, and they are actually very much high in protein content. So generally they are made into a form of pellet, and actually this means after the fermentation, whatever the mesh type of material that is left behind is actually called the DDHS, which is called dried distillers grains with solubles. Okay, and one of the main use of it is in the animal feed. Okay, so because of the very high protein content in it, it is having the means it's a good source of nutrients as, and can be used as a food, for example, in the for the animals as such. Okay, so this has been the very basic steps on how we can use these lignocellulosic hydrolysates. So here you can see there is another substrate that can be used, that also people are, means the technology is coming up, means we're utilizing the another substrate for production of the ethanol, which is the synthesis gases. So the synthesis gases, so can anyone tell what is the composition of the synthesis gas? Anyone? Abhiraj? anyone? Sashi. So this type of gases are actually being produced by the many type of industries. Okay, so these are for example, most of the industries are like the steel industries, metallurgical industries, and so many industries are actually producing these the gases, synthesis gases. Okay, so these synthesis gases are consist of mainly their main composition is carbon monoxide and the hydrogen. Okay, and generally they are released from the chimneys from the, if you have seen there are many means all the industries have their the chimneys and all those things, so they release this carbon monoxide and the hydrogen into this atmosphere, and we all know the harmful effects of for example the carbon monoxide. So again you can see here that the carbon monoxide is nothing but, so if we can able to utilize this waste carbon, okay, into some form of the source of the energy in the fermentation, so that is the main objective. Okay, so if you see the syngas, so their main composition is actually the carbon monoxide and the hydrogen. So if we can use this carbon monoxide and the hydrogen, the C and the H for the production of as a source of the energy for the means microorganisms. Okay, and along with that there are some gases, the components like the ammonia, the nitrogen, and the H2S. Now if you see the among these three components, okay, so this is where actually the challenge lies. Okay, so if you see the nitrogen, so nitrogen is also known as an inert gas. Okay, so generally it doesn't have any effect, any effect on the on the cells or the microorganisms, or also on the humans, for example. But this ammonia and the hydrogen sulfide, these two are very much toxic gases. Ammonia is also very much toxic gases at a particular high concentration, and even in hydrogen sulfide, even at a lower concentration, is having a lot of toxic effects. So generally, one of the challenges is to like whatever the this carbon monoxide and hydrogen and carbon dioxide, for example, is there, means we need to remove the trace quantity of this hydrogen sulfide and the ammonia. Okay, because CO, H2, CO2 and the N2 doesn't have any effect. Means it will not. CO and H2 is something will be the used as a carbon source, or CO2 sometimes can also be used, will be used as a carbon source. But nitrogen, for example, because of its inert nature, do not have any effect. But the NH3 and the H2S, the problem being they are highly soluble. So ammonia being highly soluble in the water, they get solubilized. Okay, and means in the growth media components during the fermentation process, and they tend to, means at high concentration, they tend to affect the microbial growth. So that is one of the challenge that we are facing, and because of this challenge at this particular step of the separation of these gases, it is becoming difficult for utilization of this waste into the source of energy. But a significant technological development is being carried out to overcome the challenges in separation of these gases. So as I talked about, these particular gases are means are the major component for the chemical industries, some of the metallurgical mining industries, and like the steel plants. And the steel plants actually produce a lot of, means a very high concentration of means a high quantity of these gases are actually released into the atmosphere. And some of the steel plants in the other parts of the world, they already have this combined technology of combining biorefinery along with means a biorefinery along with a steel plant, where they use this carbon monoxide and hydrogen gas that is being produced into the conversion into the some fuels. Okay, so if you see the bacteria which can actually utilize the gaseous source of the substrate, so there are a number of these astringogenic Clostridia, this particular family of the microorganisms. So generally we have the Clostridium, Orthoaetherium, Clostridium, Carboxydeburanus, and then we have Clostridium lugendale and Clostridium raskidalii. So they actually can use. So this few there are actually very few microorganisms also that can actually directly use the gas mixer as the source of the energy and carbon source. Okay, so these are the microorganisms which can directly take into the carbon monoxide or the carbon dioxide, the hydrogen as the source of the energy. Okay, so generally, so if you see the main product of these microorganisms is actually they actually produce the acetate. Okay, and this acetate it will be converted into the ethanol. Okay, and generally the conversion of the acetate to the conversion of the acetate to the ethanol, if you look into the fermentation pathway, so we'll just look into the pathway now. So before that, if you see in this particular case, what will happen, the acetate is going to be converted into the ethanol, and if you see the rate of conversion, the conversion is overall means is very high. Okay, and by, for example, optimizing the particular media composition, it has been observed that the ethanol production to nearly 100% of the carbon, whatever the carbon that we are entering, amount of carbon that is entering, and almost all the carbon that is entering is converted into, for example, the ethanol. So all the carbon that is used for the production of the ethanol is coming from the carbon that is there either from the carbon monoxide or from the carbon dioxide source. So generally it is having a very much higher overall conversion, and because of that, if you see the biochemical process, the fermentation process is the efficiency is generally very high. Okay, and but the major challenges that I told you, that is lying in this particular step of removing the ammonia and hydrogen sulfide gases, because they tend to have some toxic effect. And generally, if these gases are present, this means the productivity or the growth of the microorganisms is inhibited, and the efficiency of this actually reduces significantly. So one of the company which is actually means demonstrating this technology is the called LanzaTech. Okay, so this is something very recent development that has been coming up. Like if we can use, for example, we can. So here we have talked about the synthesis gases. So what about the flue gases or the gaseous emissions that is coming out from the cars, automobiles, and so on? So can we use those, because there we know that the major component being the carbon dioxide or the carbon monoxide, and they are, tend to cause the overall pollution. And so what if we can use those emissions, we can collect it in somewhere and use it for the fermentation for the production of the ethanol, and then that ethanol can itself be used as a the fuel in the same automobiles. Okay, so that is the overall picture, and a lot of research work is actually going on in this area to make the overall. So everyone must have heard the term of the carbon footprint and the carbon neutral. So we would like to make sure that we have a very much less emission or of the carbon to our environment. So whatever the carbon that we are using is should be recycled. Okay, so that is the main objective for making this type of technologies. Okay, so like whatever the otherwise what we are doing, we are releasing this carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So main thing is to recycle or reuse this carbon dioxide or carbon form into some other source of the energy, because carbon generally is a major component or backbone of any fuel or the energy source. Okay, so this is what how we can also use the second type of this source, so synthesis gases. So we have seen how what are the two examples, like either so a lot of work is being done in this first aspect. Okay, and we are seeing that slowly day by day, maybe in a year or two or down the line in next 5 years, we will find out major fraction of these lignocellulosic hydrolysates will be used for the production of the ethanol, and we are going, for example, to be using from start with the 20% as a additives with the fuel, and slowly it will increase, and we will have more and more addition. And along with that, this particular technology of using the synthesis gases is coming up, and slowly I think this will also pick, and the translation of into this technology into some commercial aspects will be there soon. Now if you look into the sorry, if you look into the in the fermentation of the process, so generally, we have talked about the two type of the microorganisms, and these are the microorganisms which are which is actually uh, being used in the industrial scale fermentation for the ethanol production. Okay, so so if you see the Saccharomyces strain, okay, so they are actually being used. Sorry. Uh, so we have talked about that when you have the lignocellulosic biomass, we are using the first part is the cellulose, the glucose. So what about the hemicellulose and the xylose? So the Saccharomyces cerevisiae actually majorly uses the cellulose or the glucose units for the consumption or the production of the ethanol. Okay, but the for example the xylose that is there. Okay, so that xylose has to be utilized. But if you see the Saccharomyces strains, they do not have the capability to use the xylose. So how do we incorporate the metabolism of the xylose? So generally, some of the modification of these biosynthesis pathways by some genetic approaches or strain improvement techniques is carried out. Okay, and so that the whatever the hemicellulose is there, so hemicellulose actually is converted into a xylose. Okay, and by carrying out the strain modifications, we can actually take up convert this xylose into the ethanol. So we'll look into this in details also probably in the next class. Like so because the xylose biochemical pathway is a different route overall. Okay, so let us look into now that what is the pathway of conversion of this glucose to the ethanol by using the Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So first of all, we will start with this particular pathways. Okay, so let us look into the very basic overall pathway, and then we will go into the detailed pathway of the glycolysis cycle. Okay, so if we see the initial means the initial pathway here, we can see it's the anaerobic metabolism. That means it is taking place in the absence of the oxygen. So it takes place in the cytosol of the yeast. The cytosol is the that the microorganisms, for example, you have talked about that they have different they have a cell wall, right, and inside they have a cytoplasm. In the cytoplasm we have the organelles, and along the in between the cytoplasms and the organelles, the spacings that are there, that is the cytosol, where actually the this type of biochemical or enzyme biochemical reactions or the biosynthesis reaction actually pathways actually takes place. So initially what is happening, the glucose is being consumed, which is having a structure of C6H12O6. Okay, and there are several steps of the glycolysis pathway. Okay, I am sure means the glycolysis pathway will describe. So this is the overall several steps that are there for this glycolysis pathway. So we'll look into this later. But as of now, we can see that the glucose is being consumed by the yeast. Okay, and through the glycolysis pathway, the particular glucose is actually converted into the pyruvate. So pyruvate is nothing but it's also called the pyruvic acid. So there are several steps in between that. Okay, so whenever this, so you can see the C6, the 6 carbon of of the glucose is now we are having now 1, 2, and 3. So we are having the 3 carbons of the pyruvic acids, and generally we have whenever we complete we complete the glycolysis pathway, we are having the 2 molecules of this pyruvic acid. So the 6 carbons of the glucose are broken down into the 3 carbons of the pyruvate or the pyruvic acid, and during this process it releases energy. The energy released by the microorganisms can be termed in the form of the ATPs. Okay, so ATPs are the it's called actually called adenine triphosphate. So whenever the energy is released, it is produced. It is it form of the ADPs. Okay, ATPs. So generally in the glycolysis pathway, what we do is breaking the C6 to the C3. Okay, and then from the pyruvic acid or the pyruvate, it is being converted into the acetaldehyde, again, what is happening from the C3? So this conversion of this acetaldehyde from the pyruvic acid is actually carried out by the enzyme which is called as a pyruvate decarboxylase. So as the name suggests, decarboxylase, that means it is removing a carbon dioxide molecule from this chemical moiety. So particular carbon dioxide, this particular CO2 molecule is removed. Okay, and what is left behind is called acetaldehyde. Okay, and then this acetaldehyde is being treated with an enzyme which is called alcohol or dehydrogenase, right? So as the name suggests, dehydrogenase. So here the hydrogenation of this actually takes place by using the precursor with the NADH, which is converted to the NAD plus. And what is happening here? We have, for example, we already have here the C2, and the C2 is converted into the this C double bond O is converted, and H is converted into the COH. So that's why it is having the name of the dehydrogenase. Okay, so you can see how, for example, the 6 carbon of the glucose is broken down into the 3 carbon using this glycolysis pathway that we'll see in the next class. And then this from C3 means a CO2 molecule is removed to convert into C2, and then it is rearranged. The acetaldehyde group is being oxidized into the alcohol group, right? And we have the ethanol being produced. And if you see the overall reactions for this fermentation anaerobic metabolism, 1 mole or 1 molecule of the glucose actually is consuming the 2 molecule of the ADP. So here you can see from this particular step, the 2 molecule of the ADP is consumed to produce the 2 molecules of the ATP. Okay, and here we have, for example, the 1 molecule of the CO2 is being released. But you have to remember that all these steps is, so from the glucose we have got the 2 moles of pyruvic acid. So all the steps have to be multiplied by the 2. Okay, so this particular step we are really a CO2 molecule is released. So 2 molecules of CO2 is released. Okay, and along with that the 2 molecules of the ethanols are actually produced. So from the 1 molecule of the glucose, the 2 molecule of the ethanol is produced. Okay, so 2 molecules of the ethanol means each molecule of ethanol having the C2, right? So that means 2 molecule of C2 and 2 molecule of this carbon from the CO2, that because there are 6 carbons. So if you balance it, so 6 carbon of the glucose has, out of which 4 carbon has been converted into the ethanol and 2 carbon is being released as the CO2 gas. Okay, so this is the overall reaction for the production of the ethanol as it it is carried out through the anaerobic metabolism. Okay, now there are several steps means in between. So we will see like that there are some microorganisms like the Saccharomyces cerevisiae. They follow, for example, the glycolysis pathway. Then there are some microorganisms like we have talked about Ximenomonas mobilis. They follow a different modified pathway of the glycolysis. Okay, so what is the modifications? What are the differences in that pathways? We're going to see in the next class. But overall, the reaction that the conversion in an anaerobic process, that is the absence of oxygen, generally 2 moles of 1 moles of glucose is converted into 2 moles of ethanol and 2 moles of the CO2. Okay, and it is accompanied with the release of the ATP molecule, which is nothing but the energy generation. So anyone has any questions or doubts till now? Anyone? Is it clear, the biochemical pathways? I guess for the biochemical engineering student, they have already gone through it. But for the other non-departmental students, did you get the point? How these biochemical pathways are being carried out? Anyone? Sloka, Sinchan,
Yes, sir.
Visaka?
Yes, sir, got it.
Okay. So, okay, if you are getting it, it's good. So, okay, so thank you everyone. Let us meet in the next class and then continue our these biosynthesis pathways. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.